Some miracles don't arrive with trumpets. Some arrive on four shaking legs, carrying a red shoe no one could ignore. On a frozen morning in Jackson, Wyoming, a wounded stray German shepherd appeared at the porch of a former Navy SEAL, sent, it seemed, by something greater. While officials dismissed the warning, one man listened, and in the storm that followed, every act of doubt faced its reckoning, and every life that chose compassion became a weapon of justice. What happened next felt less like chance, and more like divine intervention. Before we begin, share this story with someone who still believes God guides the willing. Tell us where you're watching from, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of courage and faith restored. The red shoe in the winter woods of Jackson. Winter pressed against Jackson, Wyoming, with a silence so cold it seemed to hollow out the world. Evan Brooks stepped onto the porch of his mountain cabin, exhaling a thin plume of breath that drifted past his unshaven jaw. At 40, Evan stood tall and broad-shouldered, built like a man who had endured far more than weather. His face carried the angular planes of someone trained to survive storms, both on land and within himself. A short, trimmed beard softened the severity of his square jaw, though silver threaded through his temples like frost. His dark brown eyes, usually gentle with strangers, sharpened into something dangerous whenever instinct whispered of threat. Evan moved with a slight hitch in his gait, an old knee injury from his time as a Navy SEAL. The injury had shaped him but never weakened him. It made his steps patient, deliberate. He trusted purpose over speed. And in the emptiness of this freezing morning, purpose found him first. On the top step of the porch lay a child's red shoe. It was impossibly small, clean except for a smear of fresh mud, and its double-knotted laces told a troubling story. Children did not lose shoes tied like that. Someone had taken it off. Someone had carried it here. Evan's breath tightened inside his chest. The soldier in him, rising before thought, had a chance to catch up. Beside him, Max lowered his head to inspect the shoe. Max was a 5-year-old German shepherd, bred for discipline and trained with a precision that made him more partner than pet. His coat was a striking black and tan pattern, thick and glossy even in the biting wind. His ears, rigid, alert, framed eyes the color of amber glass, eyes that read a landscape as easily as one reads a map. A black harness hugged his muscular frame, marked with bold white words. Service dog. Do not pet. Max sniffed once, then straightened. His tail froze, his chest expanded, and his ears snapped forward toward the tree line. Danger. Evan felt it before Max made a sound. The bond between them was tight enough to pulse like a second heartbeat. Years of missions, mostly unspoken, all unforgiving, had carved a mutual awareness as sharp as any weapon Evan had ever carried. Together, man and dog had once been a quiet, unstoppable force. The kind no criminal saw coming until it was too late. The kind certain men still had nightmares about. A soft crunch broke the silence. From the shadowed line of snowbird and pines emerged a second dog. This one was a ghost of a German shepherd, larger than Max but painfully thin. His coat, once silver sable, hung in ragged tufts across protruding ribs. Scars latticed his flank, and his left hind leg trembled under his weight. He was no stray looking for scraps. He was a survivor at the edge of collapse. The dog limped forward, stopping at the bottom of the porch's wooden steps. His breath came in sharp, wet bursts. Frost clung to his whiskers, and in his eyes, wide, bright, terrified, burned something Evan recognized instantly. A plea. The dog let out a whine so raw it felt like a hand gripping Evan's spine. Then he turned his head sharply south, toward the deeper, darker part of the forest. He looked back at Evan, then south again. Then Evan. Whine. Step. Whine. He was begging. Max reacted first. He planted his feet, lifted his head high, and released a single clipped bark. Not loud, not threatening, but absolute in its meaning. Listen. Evan's pulse tightened. He crouched and picked up the red shoe, turning it over in his calloused hand. Cold, but not frozen. Fresh mud. No frost lining the fabric. It had been delivered minutes ago. By whom? His eyes flicked between Max, now rigid and focused, and the wounded dog who trembled as though time itself were breaking over him. Something had happened in the woods, something violent, urgent, and very small. Evan's fingers tightened around the shoe, and with that pressure came memories he wished he had left buried. A flash of another winter, another cry for help, another moment when he had been too far away to change the ending. There had been a village, a survivor. and a mistake that haunted him still. Not again. The wind shifted. Snow swept sideways, thickening as the storm above the valley grew teeth. Evan looked up, scanning the ridgeline as the sky darkened with an approaching front. A blizzard was marching toward them. Any trail, footprints, scent, blood, would soon vanish. Max, Evan murmured. Max's body tensed with readiness. His entire posture transformed from companion to operative, to threat. He was a silent weapon against any man cruel enough to harm a child. A sudden flash of headlights cut through the swirling snow. A vehicle crested the bend of the narrow mountain road, tires crunching over ice. The engine belonged to a police SUV, Jackson Police Department white and blue, its presence both expected and ill-timed. Evan recognized the model before he recognized the silhouette behind the wheel. Deputy Liam Carter, young, earnest, too kind for the badge he wore. Liam was in his late 20s, tall but not yet filled out, with sandy blonde hair that curled slightly at the edges of his hat. Freckles dusted the bridge of his nose, giving him an innocence most officers lost early in their career. But what defined him most were his eyes, blue, honest, and haunted by the fear of failing people who needed him. Liam parked and stepped out, pulling his scarf tighter around his neck. He paused when he saw the two dogs, one perfectly controlled, the other on the verge of collapse, and the red shoe held in Evan's hand. "Mr. Brooks, what happened?" Liam asked, voice unsteady. Evan didn't answer immediately. He looked at Max, then at the wounded stray, then at the dark, snow-choked forest. And for the first time that morning, he wondered not what he should do, but whether he had enough time to choose at all. The signal no one else would hear. Snow swirled across the mountain road, as if the storm wanted to erase the world before the day could begin. The wind whistled between the pines, carrying with it the sharp scent of ice and something older, something that felt like warning. Deputy Liam Carter stood beside his SUV, one gloved hand resting on the doorframe, the other hanging stiffly by his side. The cold reddened his cheeks, making the freckles on his pale skin stand out like scattered embers. He swallowed hard. The red shoe in Evan Brooks's hand seemed to glow against the winter gloom. Liam had joined the police force 2 years earlier, fueled by an earnest desire to help people, especially the vulnerable. He'd grown up with a single mother who worked double shifts at a motel. She had taught him tenderness, but the world had taught him caution. Yet even now, staring at the trembling stray dog and the focused intensity of Evan's service dog Max, he felt something new threading through his nerves. Fear, not of the wilderness, not of the storm, but of what they might be too late to prevent. He tightened his scarf, a faded wool thing knitted by his mother years ago, and stepped closer to Evan. "Sir," Liam said softly, "if this is connected to the missing girl, we can't ignore it." He didn't add even if the sheriff wants us to. He didn't need to. Evan studied him with those sharp seal eyes, eyes that had assessed enemies, allies, and battlefields with equal precision. Evan's face remained still, but something shifted in the set of his jaw. Approval, perhaps, or wary acceptance. "Then stay close," Evan said, slipping the shoe into his coat pocket. "And keep your head up. The storm's coming fast." Liam nodded, and a quiet certainty settled inside him. He might not have the training of a SEAL, but he had chosen correctly. Max stepped forward, muscles rippling beneath his harness. His nostrils flared, catching scents hidden beneath layers of snow. The black and tan shepherd stood with disciplined stillness, the kind that made predators hesitate and cowards reconsider. Max's amber eyes flicked once toward the stray dog, an unspoken command to lead. The stray staggered forward, ribs quivering beneath patchy silver fur. The dog was older than Max, perhaps 7 or 8, with a battered body that spoke of harsh winters and harder fights. Yet his spirit remained intact. His amber-gray eyes held a fierce urgency, fueled by devotion to something, someone, beyond himself. He limped toward the tree line, looked back, whined. Evan nodded. "He wants us to follow." The three moved into the forest. Snow thickened instantly, coating branches in white armor. The world dimmed as if the storm were lowering a curtain. They had gone only a few yards when Liam heard a crunch of snow behind them. A figure emerged between the trees, a woman bundled in a heavy maroon parka. Her tall frame stooped slightly, from carrying a woven basket filled with firewood. Her long, dark hair peeked from beneath a knit cap, and her face, though pale from the cold, carried an expression of perpetual worry. This was Marjorie Lane, a widow in her late 30s who lived in a cabin farther down the ridge. She often brought baked goods to the ranger station and picked up groceries for elderly neighbors. Today her brown eyes widened when she saw the dogs and the tense posture of the two men. "Deputy Carter? Evan?" she asked, voice trembling. "Is something wrong?" Liam stepped gently toward her. "Mrs. Lane, please stay near the road. We have a situation involving a missing girl." Marjorie clutched the basket tighter. "The little one from town? Lord help her." Her gaze shifted to the stray dog. Is he hurt?" "Badly," Evan answered. "But he came here for a reason." Marjorie pressed her lips together, fear flickering across her features. "Then go. Don't let the storm swallow her." She stepped aside, letting them pass. Liam noticed her eyes linger on Max, part awe, part unease. Max didn't spare her a glance. His nose was pressed to the wind, reading invisible messages carried by the air. The deeper they walked, the more the forest closed in around them. Branches arched overhead like bony fingers. The stray dog stopped periodically, whining, circling patches of snow, then limping on. Liam had to navigate carefully. He wasn't used to mountain terrain. More than once he stumbled, catching himself on tree trunks or roots. "You doing all right?" Evan asked over his shoulder. Liam let out a shaky laugh. "Not used to chasing ghosts in a blizzard." "These aren't ghosts," Evan said. "Not yet." Max suddenly halted. He lowered his head and issued a rumbling growl, not loud, but deep enough to slip under Liam's skin like a blade of ice. Max's fur bristled along his spine. His posture changed, shifting from tracker to guardian. "Max sees something," Evan murmured. "What is it?" Liam whispered, scanning the trees. "Not sure, but he's telling us someone was here, and not long ago." The stray dog rumbled a soft whine and nudged a broken branch buried under snow. Evan knelt and brushed away the powder. Beneath it lay a rag of purple fabric, thin, frayed, snagged by the bark. Liam's breath caught. "That's the missing girl's coat color." Evan looked up, jaw tightening. "Then she came through here." Before Liam could say more, his radio crackled violently. The sheriff's voice burst through with irritation and static. "Carter, where the hell are you? Get back on patrol. Do not wander into the ridge following fairy tales." Liam hesitated, sweat prickling even in the cold. He met Evan's gaze. Evan didn't speak, but his eyes were steel. Liam slowly lifted the radio to his face. He pressed the button and turned the volume off. No words. A choice. Evan gave a single nod, a soldier acknowledging a brother in arms. The stray dog took a step toward the deeper woods, then another, trembling but determined. Max barked once, sharp as a command. Evan rose to his full height. "Let's move." And with that, man, deputy, and two very different German shepherds pushed deeper into the storm, toward whatever truth had waited beneath the falling snow. The traces of fear, the storm thickened as they entered the deeper woods, the snowfall turning from a steady curtain into a chaotic frenzy. Wind tore through the treetops, bending branches and scattering needles across the path. It was the kind of storm that swallowed sound and erased footprints, the kind that punished hesitation. Max moved first, his paws silent on the snow despite his size. Each step radiated discipline. His breath came out in short bursts, forming clouds that vanished instantly in the bitter air. The stray shepherd limped behind him, struggling but refusing to stop. His battered body seemed to run on loyalty rather than strength. Deputy Liam Carter followed, clutching the radio tucked inside his jacket as if touching it might make the sheriff's voice return. But he'd silenced that voice. Silenced doubt itself. He had chosen to trust the man walking beside him. Evan Brooks walked with steady precision despite the uneven snow. The slight stiffness in his left knee grew sharper with each slope they climbed, but he ignored it. His years as a Navy SEAL had forged something inside him that felt almost ancient now, an instinct that sharpened when danger was near. His face remained calm, carved with the quiet resolve of someone who had once witnessed children harmed in war zones and vowed never to let his hesitation cost another young life. The stray barked sharply, a thin, desperate sound that cut through the wind. "There," Evan said. A small piece of purple fabric, no larger than a leaf, fluttered against the bark of a fallen pine. Liam approached and plucked it free. The fabric was torn, its edges snagged by something rough. His breath caught. "This is hers," Liam whispered. Max pressed his nose into the snow beside the fallen tree and growled low, the sound dark and protective. He circled once, muscles coiled. "What is he sensing?" Liam asked. "Fear," Evan replied, "and movement. Something passed here fast. Snow shifted beneath them with sudden weight. Liam startled, looking up, just as a heavy birch limb snapped overhead. With a sound like a cracking bone, it dropped straight toward them. "Move!" Evan barked. Before Liam even reacted, Max lunged forward and drove his body into Evan's side, shoving both men back. The limb slammed into the ground where they had stood, sending a spray of frozen bark across the snow. Liam's pulse hammered. Max stood between them and the falling debris, growling a warning into the wind. "God," Liam breathed. "He really is something else." Evan steadied himself. "He's trained to keep me alive. Anyone who tries to harm a child near him—" He left the sentence unfinished, but Liam understood. Max was more than a dog. He was a force, a silent consequence waiting to fall on the head of the wrong man. The stray whined again, moving deeper toward a slope where the snow was disturbed in chaotic lines. Evan crouched beside the marks, brushing, a side powder with the back of his glove. He found them, deep drag marks, long and narrow. "She slid," Evan murmured, "and she tried to get up." He showed Liam the frantic scratches in the snow. "See these? That's a child fighting panic." Liam swallowed hard. 6 years old in this cold? She won't last much longer. Evan rose and looked toward the tree line, his expression hardening. "Then we don't slow down." He moved ahead, Max at his heel. Liam followed, but as they pushed forward, the wind shifted again, carrying with it a faint sound. A muffled cry, a distant echo, or something else entirely. The stray sprinted suddenly, an explosion of movement from a body that should have collapsed hours ago. He skidded across the snow and barked sharply at a line of rocks leading down a shallow ravine. "He's signaling," Evan said. Liam peered down. The slope was uneven, dotted with boulders and twisted brush. Snow had been disturbed in several spots. "What is this place?" Liam asked. "A drainage path," Evan replied. "When the snow melts, it comes down through here, and carries anything with it," Liam said, pale now. Max barked once, sharp, commanding, his tail raised, his muscles taut. Liam pointed. "There! Footprints!" They weren't full prints, only faint indentations before the wind stole their edges, but they angled sharply downhill. "She was here," Liam said. "And she fell," Evan replied. The stray limped toward another cluster of rocks, lowering his head. He nudged a small object out of the snow with his nose. Liam reached for it, but Evan touched his arm. "Let me." Evan lifted the object, a pink mitten, soaked and half frozen. Liam shut his eyes. "She's still alive. She has to be." Evan pocketed the mitten beside the red shoe. "We keep moving." He looked at Max, and Max answered with a low growl directed toward the narrowing ravine. Something, or someone, had been here recently. Evan's posture changed again, that subtle transformation that always precedes consequence. The disciplined stillness of a Navy SEAL preparing not just to track, but to confront. Max sensed it and mirrored his stance. He was not just a tracker now, he was a threat, silent, coiled, deadly, waiting for the order to protect a child from whatever cruelty had driven her into this forest. Wind howled overhead, carrying no voices but its own. The stray shepherd stepped forward and looked back once, eyes pleading, before descending the ravine as if time itself were running out. Evan followed. Liam tightened his coat and followed. Max descended last, each step deliberate, each breath a promise. They went down into the narrow white corridor, where only fear and truth left their marks. The day of reckoning. The conference room on the second floor of North Anchorage Elementary was too warm for winter. The heat hummed from an old vent in the corner, filling the space with a dry, metallic smell that clashed with the icy storm still raging outside. Yet, despite the warmth, a chill threaded through the room, one born not of weather, but of tension. Noah Carter stood near the far end of the table, the navy coat stretched across his broad shoulders. His posture was controlled, his jaw set, his gaze sharp enough to silence a room. Beside him sat Atlas, the 5-year-old German shepherd, massive but composed, his head held high. His amber eyes flicked across every person present, and even seated, the dog radiated the disciplined menace of a trained combat partner. Across the table, Principal Howard Greer adjusted his tie with trembling fingers. Greer was a heavy-set man in his mid-50s, short with thinning blonde hair and a face prone to sweating under stress. His pale skin flushed pink whenever he grew uneasy, which made him appear perpetually embarrassed. He had spent his career avoiding conflict rather than managing it, a trait that now betrayed him. Next to him sat Assistant Principal Cole, his wiry frame rigid with nerves. His glasses slipped down his nose as he shuffled through a stack of reports he barely understood. At the opposite side of the room, Ms. Morgan stood with clenched fists. She wore a burgundy sweater and black slacks, her frame tall and wiry, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun. A style that once projected authority, but now emphasized the rigidity in her expression. Her face, narrow and sharp, revealed flashes of defensiveness beneath a veneer of forced calm. Her eyes were darting, as though searching for an escape route. She was not a woman used to admitting fault. Pride had shaped her, sharpened her, and in recent years hardened her into someone brittle. The door opened quietly, and Sarah Whitmore, the counselor, stepped inside. Her calm presence brought a faint softness to the room, though even she seemed guarded, aware she was stepping into a battle. Principal Greer cleared his throat. "We're here to address the incident involving Emily Carter." Noah's jaw tightened at the phrase "the incident," as though his daughter's suffering were merely a scheduling mishap. He did not speak, not yet. Instead, he placed one hand lightly on Atlas's neck, grounding both himself and the dog. Cole looked toward Ms. Morgan. "Please explain your actions." Ms. Morgan straightened her shoulders. "I was teaching a lesson. Emily interrupted me and mocked me. I sent her outside for a moment to cool down." "A moment?" Sarah's voice was soft, but the weight behind it cut through the air. "In a blizzard?" Ms. Morgan's cheeks reddened. "I didn't think it was that cold." "It was 12 degrees, Noah said, voice low and even. Ms. Morgan flinched at the sound of his voice, not from volume, but from the controlled force beneath it. She continued, "It wasn't intentional. I meant to bring her back in." "Then why did you lock the door?" Sarah asked. Ms. Morgan opened her mouth, but no words came out. Before she could recover, a group of students entered, 3 boys and a girl, each wearing winter jackets and nervous expressions. They ranged in age but shared the same wide-eyed fear of doing something wrong. Principal Greer gestured. These students volunteered statements. The tallest boy stepped forward. His sandy hair fell into his eyes as he spoke. "We heard Ms. Morgan tell Emily she needed to learn her place. Then she pushed her outside." The girl beside him, petite with dark skin and long braids, added softly, "Emily knocked for a long time. Ms. Morgan told us not to open the door." Another boy nodded vigorously. "She said if we opened it, we were getting detention." Ms. Morgan's face drained of color. Sarah folded her hands gently. "Children don't invent stories like this when they tremble while talking." Ms. Morgan's breathing quickened. "They misunderstood." Noah stepped forward deliberately. The room froze. He did not loom or raise his voice. The power came from stillness, a practiced stillness that signaled absolute danger. He looked directly at Ms. Morgan. "If Emily collapsed out there, we wouldn't be sitting in a meeting room. We'd be in a courtroom." Atlas rose to his feet with slow, controlled precision. The dog's posture elevated, muscles aligned, head held level. It wasn't aggression, it was readiness. His amber eyes locked on Ms. Morgan with chilling focus. Every person in the room felt the shift. The combination of a seasoned SEAL and his combat-trained dog created an atmosphere crackling with unspoken consequence. Ms. Morgan's voice trembled. "I didn't mean—" "You meant to punish her," Noah said, "and you almost killed her." Principal Greer swallowed hard. "Ms. Morgan, given the evidence and testimonies, you are suspended effective immediately." Cole added, "Law enforcement has been notified." The color drained from Ms. Morgan's face entirely. Her legs wobbled as though the foundation beneath her had vanished. She looked not at Noah, but at Atlas, seeing in the dog's steady stare the truth she had refused to accept. She was the predator until something bigger stepped into the room, and now she was prey. A knock sounded at the door. Officer Danielle Rusk, a woman in her early 40s with a sturdy build, brown skin, tightly braided black hair, and an expression carved from years of dealing with the worst of Anchorage, entered the room. Her dark eyes scanned the scene, pausing on Noah with recognition, not personally, but professionally. She knew a military man when she saw one. "I'm here for Ms. Morgan," Officer Rusk said. Ms. Morgan let out a faint broken sound. Noah didn't watch the handcuffs click closed. He simply placed a steady hand on Atlas, signaling the dog to stand down. But the message had been delivered. Cruelty had consequences. And justice, when brought by a SEAL and the dog beside him, was not gentle. A rescue team born from the storm, snow whipped across the ridge in ragged sheets as Liam braced himself, digging his boots deep into the frozen crust. The rope cut across his lower back, biting through layers of fabric, but he leaned harder, forcing every ounce of strength in his young frame into the pull. His breath tore from him in sharp bursts, carried away by the wind. "Don't let them fall," he growled through clenched teeth, the words meant for no one but himself. The storm screamed, the line jerked, and then, finally, Evan's gloved hand appeared over the edge. Liam pulled with a desperate roar, and the seal rolled onto the snow, Emma strapped against his chest. Both collapsed into a heap, breathing hard and shaking, but alive. Evan unfastened the harness, lifting the unconscious girl gently into his arms. Up close, even in his exhaustion, he radiated the stern focus of someone forged in violence and survival. His dark eyes, intense and unwavering, scanned her face with a practiced clarity, checking color, breath, pulse, every motion grounded in battlefield memory. "We need to move," Evan said. His voice was low, steady, commanding. "She's hypothermic." Liam nodded and grabbed his radio, only to find it dead. The battery light blinked twice, then faded. He muttered a frustrated curse. They began the trek back through the storm, Evan carrying Emma with careful precision, Max walking tight at his side. The service dog, 5 years old, black and tan coat thick with frost, kept his body angled outward, always guarding the injured pair. Every shift of his weight signaled discipline. Every glare into the dark tree line promised violence should any threat approach. Behind them, the stray shepherd limped heavily, dragging its ruined hind leg through the snow. Blood marked its path like a quiet testament, yet it followed still, gaze fixed on the small girl in Evan's arms. When they finally broke through the woods, a surge of lights cut through the snow. Ambulances, patrol cars, emergency responders, bundled in heavy jackets, rushed forward. Among them came Rachel Parker, Emma's mother, a thin, pale-skinned woman in her late 30s with chestnut hair disheveled from hours of panic. Her eyes were red from crying, her hands trembling as she reached for her daughter. "Emma, my baby, please." Her voice cracked as she touched her daughter's cheek, breaking into tears as paramedics wrapped up the girl in warming blankets. Beside her stood David Parker, Emma's father, a broad-shouldered man of 40 with a thick beard and weather-creased skin. Usually steady, he looked utterly undone, his tall frame shaking with relief as he wrapped his wife in his arms. Paramedics lifted Emma onto a stretcher. The couple followed, clinging to her as if she might vanish again. Cameras flashed from the fringe of the emergency line. Curious residents, reporters arriving early, and officers formed a tight ring around the chaos. And cutting through it all was Sheriff Hale. The sheriff strode toward Evan and Liam with a stiffness that betrayed shame beneath authority. Hale was in his 50s, trim but graying, with a square jaw and a temper sharpened by years of command. His pride rarely allowed humility, but tonight carved exceptions into stone. He stopped before Liam. "You did what I didn't have the courage to believe," Hale said quietly. His voice lacked its usual abrasive push. "You saved her." Liam swallowed hard. The praise didn't sit comfortably. He shook his head and gestured toward Evan. "No," Liam said, voice hoarse. "He read the signal. I just held the line." Evan didn't acknowledge the remark with anything more than a nod, but the faint tightening at his jaw showed respect. The SEAL's sense of justice ran deep, built on years of watching the cost of leadership failures. Max nudged Liam's leg, sensing the boy's trembling adrenaline. The deputy reached down, brushing his hand across the dog's harness patch. "Service dog, do not pet." Yet tonight even protocol felt different. Max pressed his head briefly to Liam's knee, a gesture of camaraderie rather than comfort. At the tree line, the stray shepherd lay on its side. Its breathing was ragged now, each rise of its ribs a shallow tremor. Blood stained the snow in a slow widening patch beneath it. The dog's amber eyes, once fierce with urgency, had softened into quiet exhaustion. Max stepped toward it, ears pricked. Instead of aggression, he let out 3 short, low barks, measured, respectful, a soldier greeting another. Evan approached the injured dog, his navy coat whipping in the wind. He crouched, laying the folded garment beside the trembling creature. His movements were slow, deliberate, never forcing contact, only offering. "You saved her," Evan murmured. His voice carried the weight of sincerity reserved for those who have fought their way through impossible odds. "And you paid for it. If you want, you can come with us." The dog lifted its head weakly, glancing toward the ambulance where Emma disappeared behind closing doors. It blinked once, then turned to Max, standing tall and still, a sentinel made of muscle and instinct. Then, finally, it met Evan's stare, a stare between warriors, a stare between survivors. The dog dragged itself forward, inch by inch, until its nose touched the navy coat. It lowered its head onto the fabric and closed its eyes. A decision made, a bond formed, a new pack born. And so, beneath the frozen stars of Jackson, Wyoming, 3 figures stood at the edge of the woods. A Navy SEAL with a scarred knee and a soldier's resolve. A trained service dog whose quiet gaze promised retribution to any who dared harm the innocent. And a wounded stray who had given everything to save one child. They did not look like heroes, but in the heart of the storm, that was exactly what they had become. Some people say miracles hide in grand places, wrapped in bright light and trumpets. But more often, they arrive quietly, carried by a stray dog's courage, a young deputy's shaking hands, or the steady heart of a soldier who refuses to walk away. On a frozen night in Jackson, a child was saved by 3 lives who had no reason to cross paths. Yet God threads his own map through the wilderness, guiding the willing, strengthening the weary, and lighting the smallest ember of hope when the world grows cold. And maybe that is the lesson for us all, that in the ordinary days of our lives, between the morning coffee, the long drives, the bills, and the worries, we might still be called to notice the quiet signals around us. The neighbor who needs a hand, the child who needs protection, the stray soul who only needs one open door. If this story touched your heart today, I invite you to share it with someone who still believes that goodness can rise in the hardest storms. Tell us where you are watching from in the comments. And if you'd like to hear more stories of courage, faith, and the unexpected angels walking among us, please subscribe and join our growing family. May God bless you, keep you warm through every winter of the soul, and may He send you your own small miracle right when you need it most.